Hi, this is the Philosophical Angle, and I'm your host, Chris Angle. The purpose of the Philosophical Angle is to discuss concepts in current media. And with me are my co-hosts and discussants, Remy Canario, a political analyst. How you doing, Remy?
How you doing, Chris?
Professor Mark Brennan from New York University. Mark. And Rick Samuelson, a venture capitalist, graduated from Yale. Good to see you, Rick. This week, the topic or the concept of concern here is the significance of Hillary's emails. So let's get started. There's an ethical significance, I believe, here when dealing with Hillary's email fiasco. It's been explained on media that Hillary broke several governmental laws regarding secrecy and communications of the U.S. government, and thus I think I can conclude that this is not respectful of the U.S. laws, and I could even probably extrapolate that to go farther and say that she's not qualified to be President of the United States, having done so. Well, she's not respectful of the communication of laws, and obviously that is not beneficial for the U.S. intelligence community in general, or even the U.S. government in general. Hillary does not care for the goodness that the government produces for the general welfare of its citizens. And thus I conclude that this is an unethicality. If she eschews the U.S. laws and does not adhere to U.S. protocol, she's uncooperative in our production of governance for the benefit of U.S. society, and that she's not respectful of the U.S. and the U.S. citizenry. Thus, I'd like to conclude that from this that I don't think she's really qualified to be President of the United States. Now, Hillary's emails are big in the news. And why has media covered this? Because the actions, they sense that the actions are bad, that she's broken laws, that she's possibly unethical or even possibly evil. I don't know. Why would they think that? Well, in order to judge, I think the first thing is we need to define what is ethics and evil. So, to open the discussion, the ethics is the appropriate dispensation of respect. And we respect in order to cooperate, as respect reduces aggression and tension within living entities. And anthropologically speaking, that evolved in order for us to cooperate. In other words, in order for us to cooperate, there had to be a behavioral asset, a behavioral facility that lessened the aggression and tension between two individual entities, living entities that want to cooperate. And why do we cooperate? We cooperate in order to produce things. And we produce things in order to bring goodness to our lives. And we bring goodness to our lives to bring us up away from misery. So, the facts are that Hillary did break from government tradition of using the government email protocol, indicating that she's not cooperative, she's not respectful of government protocol, and if she's not respectful of government, she wouldn't be respectful of the constituents that make up the U.S. population, because she's above government. She is the ruling class, much above the commoner, above the citizens of the U.S. or the denizens of America. Thus, she's qualified to be queen, but unfortunately not the President of the United States. So, one more thing I'd like to explain, I didn't give a definition of evil, which is the unethicality of an action combined with an unethicality of an objective. And so her actions have not been ethical. And now you have to determine whether her objectives were unethical. That is, her objectives. Why did she separate herself from the government protocol? Why did she why did she have to use it privately? Her emails. So with that said, guys, I'd like to cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war of ideas. So what do you think? What do you think about this problem of Hillary? Is it significant? Should the U.S. citizenry call this bad upon her and allow her to be president of the United States? What do you think?
I think there's an obvious solution to this problem, Chris. Pass a sweeping amendment to convert the United States from a republic into a constitutional monarchy. Done.
Exactly. She would make a good queen. Remy?
Well, I mean, it does seem a bit selective for conservatives to claim that this act of not obeying the law, and we're just going to run with that, assume that it's true for now, when someone like Cliven Bundy, who was in an armed standoff with the federal government, became a bit of a conservative hero. If a law is questionable, if a law is, I mean, if there's one case where standing up to a law or not complying with it can be ethical and indeed worthy of praise, why isn't this?
Could you explain for the audience who it is that you just mentioned?
Cliven Bundy was a Nevada cattle rancher who essentially decided that he wouldn't pay for the right to graze his cattle on public lands because he claimed that his family had been doing so for generations.
Oh, that's right. That was a recent. That was recently in the news, right? Maybe a month or two ago.
Yeah, probably about a year ago.
A year ago.
Not
Okay. Mark, you seem a little disinterested in this problem. Any comments?
Why would we want to go from a fascist dictatorship to a constitutional monarchy? She'd be much more well-suited to run our fascist dictatorship than she would for a constitutional monarchy. There are limits placed on a constitutional monarch. And as of right now, our president can unilaterally declare war. The War Powers Act means nothing. He delegated, Congress delegated that power to Bush for Iraq. This would all fit perfectly with Hillary. The trade agreement that Obama is ramming down our throats, Obamacare, why would Hillary want to limit herself through a constitution? Our monarchists will do well without it.
So, do we have unanimity here? A unanimous opinion that Hillary is not qualified to be president of the United States because of this? Go ahead.
I also am going to come out and say that I don't particularly agree with the statement that the United States of America is a fascist dictatorship. I happen to think that we are a democratic republic. I believe that we have a constitution. I believe that the system works more or less effectively, although sometimes you wish that it would work better. So I, for one, am not about to use such inflammatory language. Also, we started from this very hyperbolic place of Hillary is a queen, Hillary is a dictator, and everything, and all of this based off of her emails. I mean, isn't that a bit of a leap?
Well, no one said Hillary's a dictator and Hillary's a queen. We're talking about when the coronation occurs in January of 2017, then she may become the queen. And Sheldon Adelson thanks you for buying into the misconception that we live in a democratic republic where your vote counts. You have a vote, but you have no voice. Sheldon Adelson thanks you for that. as he determines our foreign policy through his multi-million-dollar donations. So, hoo-hoo, Democratic Republic, here we go.
Are you saying that politicians can be bought? Mark, did you say that politicians can be bought? Is that what you're...
Oh no, did I say that? Wow, wow, did I come to that conclusion? I can't believe I might have mistakenly stumbled upon that. Maybe this is an epiphany I had 30 seconds ago.
Okay.
Mark is always very surprising because we find ourselves agreeing at times, just completely out of the blue. I mean, but in this Citizens United age where money is speech, what exactly can you do? I mean, other than a constitutional amendment.
You can do nothing. I can do nothing. Sheldon Adelson can do whatever he wants. George Soros can do whatever he wants. We do not. When money is determining, as you said from Citizens United, that is anything but a democratic republic, where votes actually count, where Republican limits on the majority behavior or on a powerful minority to constrain them. It's all out the window.
Well, then in that case, that does open up an interesting topic of conversation, and that's when you have groups like the Koch brothers, which are promising to spend as much as the DNC or the RNC, which is going to be approximately $1 billion on this coming election, wouldn't you argue that as those kinds of large donors, like Sheldon Adelson as well, are concentrated on the Republican side, wouldn't you argue that therefore it is a more democratic route to go with a Democratic candidate who gets a larger proportion of their donations from smaller donors?
Well, we'd have to add them all up. You left out unions. You left out a lot of
percent of the population. They no longer have the clout that they used to.
Okay, I'm talking about their political donations. I'm not talking about the percent of the population. And also, you might want to take a look at the percent of Americans working for this government who are unionized. That's
hold on. Just before you move forward, please. Equating a union which represents many people with one billionaire is not a fair comparison.
I'm talking dollars to dollars comparison. Whatever a billionaire gives, I'm talking just when you said that the Kochs are giving more. I would like to see a calculation. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right. I would like to see a calculation, tally it all up. Who is donating more? And the bottom line,
as long as you include all of the people,
include every single dollar of political donations in this country, and we'll put labels on them and figure it out. But the bigger point that we're both missing on this is that money should not be driving this. A dollar should not be a vote. A vote is a vote, not your dollar counts and my dollar counts, and we therefore counteract each other. Money should not be influencing elections. People should be going out and voting in their interest, and politicians should be acting in the American national interest. Not what Sheldon Adelson thinks our foreign policy should be, not what George Soros thinks reproductive rights in Eastern Europe should be, and not what the Koch brothers think in terms of drilling across the country. It should be Americans voting, not special interests, where the benefits are concentrated and the expenses, which cost you and me dollars on the barrel, are dispersed, and we don't care about it.
Rick, any comment?
We're actually in agreement on this.
All right.
I'd love to see the tally. And by the way, I would bet that if we tallied it up, one side's probably giving 51%, the other one's 49%. In which case, we can throw our hands up in the air and say we both lose.
Well, I do think that there's a difference between an interest group and an individual. I mean, an interest group represents an interest, but presumably it can be thousands of people, and there's a distinction that needs to be drawn there. So I would like to see the contributions from individuals and to compare that, because and then yes, of course, it makes sense to look at the rest of the money that's coming in, but within that context of special interests often representing a large group of people.
Are you guys trying to say that a large amount of dollars contributed is not good for the American political scene, and that, but don't we have a First Amendment that guarantees that we can use our right to free speech in any way we want to? And one of the ways is to buy advertisement and to buy a political voice through others.
That I've always found that to be a very, very interesting interpretation of freedom of speech. Apparently, the Supreme Court disagrees with me on this one, so what I have to say on it really doesn't matter that much. But I mean, reading that that amendment, I don't see where it equates speech with a commercial activity, or especially when it has such an outsized impact on something as critical to the health of this nation as our electoral process.
Chris, it's the second worst judicial opinion, only exceeded by Dred Scott, so it's moronic. It steals the voice of the common man.
Rick, anything?
I guess in as much as the dollars are reasonably evenly divided, like if they're going to pay the Democrats and allies spend a lot more than Republicans. The races, the national level, the amounts of money are obviously grotesque and exaggerated. On the local level, we don't see these kinds of numbers. But I would say, in as much as that judgment has been rendered, and given that the amounts of money being spent are relatively equal and likely to be relatively equal in this cycle, I'm not as concerned about that. I don't like the fact that people like Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton charge, $100,000, $200,000, whatever it is, to deliver speech. It's obviously done on a quid pro quo basis. So, however this is dressed up as, free speech, it's plain that the contributors and sponsors are buying influence. It's obvious. But it's always been that way. It's just now more exaggerated.
Chris, I'd like to re-invoke the system that the ancient Greeks used, which was you would take office, and at the end of your term in office, you would be put in the docket, and you would put the dock, and you would be grilled by the public as to why your net worth increased while you were in office. And if it was such an egregious increase that it offended the public, you were liable to be put to death.
Okay, so you guys are, were you guys for McCain-Feingold? Do you agree as to its intent, its original intent?
Okay, I have to duck out of this question because every time I hear the word McCain, it sends me into a spitting rage. So I'm gonna pass on this one.
Well, there was, so we'll just say Feingold, but the content of that election law. Are you and Remy for in agreement with the content of that law?
At least with its aims. I think it was a flawed solution to a very real problem, but ever since it's been repealed, the prevalence of super PACs and 501c4s has grown so dramatically, it's hard not to think that things used to be maybe a little bit better before it wasn't.
Okay, you guys have used the word buying influence when talking about large money, but I'd like to say that that's actually not the case. It's more like determining ideas and gaining ascendancy in the prevalence of your ideas over another, and that is the idea of free speech. And yes, you use dollars for that. Use dollars to help you buy ads in the New York Times or ads on TV that purport your idea. And I think that's why the justices really saw the beauty in the First Amendment. And I don't look at it as buying influence so much as as the priority of an intellectual discussion. Am I wrong, or are you right? Tell me. What do you think, Remy?
In this case, if everyone had equal access to money to be able to make their statements at the same volume, then you'd be absolutely right. But the fact of the matter is that we are a country that embraces the fact that some people will do better than others. Now, that economically speaking, that is how things are, and maybe even how things should be. Politically speaking, our system is based off of one person, one vote, and the idea of free speech is supposed to be a universal good that is distributed equally among the population. When you have people who have billions of dollars, their speech and in the current system that we have, their speech gets amplified far beyond what anyone else can do. And the idea of one person, one vote, the same free speech that applies to everyone is made a mockery of.
Do you believe in property rights?
For a countervailing piece of evidence, if we're talking about sheer money being the determinant of success of a campaign, it seems improbable that Jeb Bush would be falling dramatically as he is in the polls.
Exactly.
Along with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders and Trump rising as dramatically as they are. It doesn't seem reasonable.
Well, I don't think that anyone would disagree that there aren't other factors at play in determining a candidate's success other than money. However, the effects of money can be pernicious and do have the effect of promoting the ideological preferences of the people with the power to promote them on a large scale.
Okay, how can it be pernicious?
How can it be pernicious?
Yeah.
I mean, it's when a small group of people can repeat something over and over enough times, spread the message far enough, or apply money in the right way. I mean,
How does that distinguish from the press?
The press is not one person, and the press is held to a standard of objectivity.
And these people who are perniciously given their ideas out there to compete with the press are to be labeled pernicious, and the press is not pernicious?
Well, I'm no longer at Fox News, so I certainly think that you can't have such a thing as the pernicious press. But that being said, Fox News is not one person who is dedicating a huge amount of money to drowning out the voices of millions of other people. That's the basic contract. We are all equal in this country, fine. But when it comes to free speech and elections, if you have money, you are far more equal than anyone else.
Okay, so you've got the press, which is far more equal than anybody else doing its broadcasting, and you have one guy who's an owner or a chairman of one of these organizations, and he places upon the organization which he runs a specific idea. Is that not pernicious? And his... Go ahead.
This actually does tie into something that I wanted to discuss. When we open this debate, you raised the point that Hillary emails scandal was something that the media had picked up on, that it was of a lot of interest and had been reported on as a major story. Well, I'm not sure I entirely agree with you on that. The day that Hillary's server was handed over to the FBI, I happened to Google News search the words Hillary, email, and scandal, just to take a look at what I would see. And the fact of the matter is that in the first 2 pages of results, so that's in the first 20 results, there were 2 articles that were directly addressing this issue. And one was from Fox News, and the other was from the Washington Times. And neither of which, I think it's pretty fair to say, is exactly a disinterested party in this. They both have an interest in promoting the idea that this is a major story because it helps their political aims. So if we're going by the judgment of the media, I would argue, in fact, that this is not a major story, that most people have greeted it with a shrug, and especially the international observers that you would expect to have more skin in the game in terms of maintaining their neutrality in this domestic debate, have not dedicated anywhere near the amount of attention to it that you seem to think that they did.
Yeah. So why isn't it a big story? It's not a big story because the press has not paid much attention to it, because the press has its CEO to have certain ideas that are commensurate with the election of Hillary, which is a pernicious objective, I think, and that's why you don't see stories. The only place this is broken and discussed was on the other side, talk radio.
You might want to also consider this is the case of the dog that didn't bark. Nobody was complaining after the New York Times leaked the Vietnam Pentagon papers that, whoa, that was purely politically driven. We actually read the Pentagon Papers and we found out, oh my God, that war was a total nightmare. Robert McNamara should be lit on fire. So, here, if this actually erupts into something, we can actually thank Fox. I hate Fox. I find them to be it's the least patriotic network out there. But if they broke this, and this is where we have to drop the tribalism on this show, drop the politicization, and start looking at facts and logic. If Fox broke something that's important, we look into it. The New York Times broke something that's very important. 58,000 American lives flushed down the toilet. 2 to 3 million Vietnamese lives flushed down the toilet. It's time to start looking at facts and stop acting like tribal idiots.
The fact of the matter is that Fox has been basically the media arm of the Republican Party for a
And MSNBC has been the media arm of the Democratic Party, the left wing.
Not a fair comparison. Fox matters, whereas MSNBC does not.
They're all partisan hacks. Remember Aquinas' theory, the fallacy of the 1-inch man. When you see a man a mile away, he looks like he's 1 inch tall. No, actually, he's not 1 inch tall. The medium through which you are looking at him, which is 1 mile, makes him look like he's 1 inch tall. All media distort. MSNBC distorts. Fox News distorts. To sit here and suddenly to berate Fox News and at the same time to defend MSNBC as some impartial mirror.
I am not defending MSNBC. I'm saying that Fox News has weight and a certain reach, an importance in national discourse that MSNBC simply does not. I mean, they're not MSNBC every day, like many conservatives that I know. There is no equivalent organization on the left of Fox News. There simply isn't.
MSNBC, Morning Joe is the most popular morning TV show. I mean, honestly, we have to talk facts.
Who's a Republican? Are you really saying that there's anything comparable to that? That is an indicator of the same kind of ideological entrenchment that there is at Fox News. And anyway, we're talking about
Rachel Maddow, the androgynous Chris Hughes, the whole crowd. If you tell me these people are not pushing a leftist agenda, my TV's broken.
But in any case, Fox News has been, since the day that Obama was elected, it has been one scandal after the other. And that's the only thing that's essentially been reported on. It's been as if nothing else has happened. At a certain point, you have to learn to tune it out. I mean, it started with what? It started with birtherism, and Obama's a Muslim, then the new Black Panther Party, then death panels, then what else was there? Oh yeah, there was Benghazi, there was the IRS, there was...
some of those are real scandals, I got to admit. The IRS is...
We can substitute MSNBC when you said Fox, and we can list 50 different scandals there.
Okay, guys, I gotta break in here. We've only got a couple minutes to go. But I want to make one comment of this discussion that I just heard. And we used... I heard the word distort the news. And I'd like to say that actually... media doesn't really distort the news. I think a more precise expression is that they prioritize their expressions in order to disseminate an ideology.
Which is a long way of saying distort.
It's not a distortion because it's remaining true to a certain priority of an ideology which they have, and so you have to uncover the ideology really. To understand what they're like. Rick has remained silent here, so Rick, I'm gonna give you the final word here before we have to.
I just wanted to get back on topic with Hillary. What I find interesting is how the FBI and more broadly the Justice Department are handling the ongoing investigation. I think it's naive to think that Mr. Obama wouldn't be watching this quite carefully, and the politics behind this smell to me like a situation where Mr. Obama, if he really wants to press Hillary, because he can determine indirectly the pace of this investigation. I mean, it could go on right through the end of 2016. Or it could happen over a much shorter period of time. It would certainly appear to give Mr. Obama more leverage over Hillary than he had before. I just would leave you with that thought.
Okay, thanks very much. I want to thank everybody here for having joined us this week on this discussion about Hillary on the philosophical angle, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.